So any variations of these 4 particular moves is accessible to anybody regardless of their training age or physical context. This is a great place to start and start to move your body. Okay, so we're gonna look at squat play, and there are so many different ways we can go about doing this. Generally speaking, we wanna spend roughly about 45 seconds to 60 seconds. And squat is one of those positions that we all need, but often struggle with, including myself. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a little wedge here. You can use a little mat or a plate to raise your heels up. This will simply allow us to bend at the ankles a little bit better, which means I can bend for the knees and hips a little bit better. Now, the cool thing about squat play is that, whether it's the rack variation or the kettlebell variation, something in front of you will help you counterbalance and get you a little bit deep into the position. Now we can simply sit here for the prescribed time, as I was talking about, or we can kind of just be a little bit inquisitive and start to kind of play, maybe even consciously lift one heel up, knees, we can play. We can also look to go into a little pike position, get into the back of the legs. Really there is no hard and fast rule with this particular protocol. The key thing here is just kind of feeling good and making sure your joints are moving really, really well. Doing the same thing in a rack if you don't have a kettlebell. Again, we can use and leverage off the rack. I can literally fall back. I can play with opening my hips in and out. Again, looking to get into places, nooks and crannies if you like, that you otherwise wouldn't simply get into. We can again play with different loading patterns here. I can again go into a little bit of a pike position so I can feel that load through the back of the legs as well. Boom. I can look to play with my hips. So the idea is that we get to spend a little bit more quality time in the squat position and start to make this feel a little bit normal and comfortable over a period of time. Next up, we're gonna look at some ring play. Now, generally speaking, we're gonna look to spend some time on top of the rings, meaning we're gonna be looking to push or press, okay? The really cool thing about ring is that obviously it's unstable. So I really have to use the small stabilizers in my shoulders, in and around my shoulder girdle, to make sure I'm nice and strong and stable, okay? So the very obvious move that we can play with is a plank position. Straps are ever so slightly off the shoulders. I'm going to come into ball onto my feet, nice and long, posterior tilt, and I can look to hold this. Now, this is awesome. We can make it harder by getting a little bit more parallel or horizontal to the ground. We can make it a little bit easier by being a little more upright. So you can see it's fairly accessible. But what we want to do here is, start to kind of play with different shapes. We're going to do something called long body, which is, again, staying organized from the shoulders and the hips. I can look to extend my arms. Obviously, this is going to require a little bit more strength from the shoulders. I can look to kind of go into a little turnout hold. You can notice my forearms, my palms are facing forward. The straps are ever so slightly behind me. I can, again, hold each of these positions for some time, okay? Or I can sort of marry the two together. Okay, now the key thing here is obviously I have to make sure I am nice and strong and stable. I can make small circles, which will be a little more accessible. I can make nice big circles, which will be a little more challenging. I can go back a little bit to, again, make it a little bit more intense or harder. I can be a little more upright to make it easy. But the main thing here is we're starting to understand where and how to push forward and stay nice and stable from the shoulders. Looking at single leg play, now the intent or the idea is that, we want to make sure we understand where and how we can get into certain places, standing on one leg, where the balance and stability, so my ability to make sure I'm balanced on my feet, my knees, ankles, and hips talking to each other is a little bit comfortable. A great way to do this is on a beam. If you don't have something like this, you can use a parallel. Again, a very simple work, looking to, hold this position on a single leg for 45 seconds to 60 seconds per side as a bare minimum. You can go a little bit longer if you want to, okay? But if you don't have a parallel, okay, something that you can do is simply onto the ground. We call this a single leg primer. Initially, what we're going to do here is 3-point of contact we're looking for. We're going to reach as far forward as possible, which means you can bend the knees as much as you want. We can kiss the ground with the tip of your index fingers simultaneously, come up to finish that one. Then we can look to go to the side. Now again, the intent here is that I'm rotating, I'm having to figure out how and where I can go. That would be number 2. Then the third and last one is going to be on the same side, which is going to be the most challenging one most likely, okay? And then we just, again, repeat that for the prescribed time. Okay, we got forwards, and then we can go play to the side, and then to the same side as the standing leg. And that would be a single leg primer or a single leg play. Next up is looking at some hanging play. Now again, hanging, very simple. We're gonna have our palms facing away from us, and we can just look to simply take our weight and just play with it. Now, if this is already hard, you can use a box or a ground to your advantage, okay? You can have your feet assisted work. Look, I can just hang here with tippy toes onto the box. But from, a basic hang, we can kind of do a bunch of things, okay? So if I was to, let's say, hang in this, we can play with some, what we refer to as active passive, up and down. You can sway, whatever feels good. You can literally look to do one arm bias work. You can as well go as far as playing with some neutral grip stuff. So again, there is no hard and fast rule with playing with different grips. Maybe you want to play palms face towards you, okay? Now again, all this work constitutes as hanging play. The main thing is we are taking our weight with our hands overhead, okay? And looking to strengthen the shoulders, getting used to that body weight in air.